Anybody coming in? Made a couple audio changes, so whoever's in quick wants to let me know. My key light's also totally shot, but if you got a new one, like it broke, I don't know. The top of it, like one of the halos, just totally shorted. I've had it forever. I mean, I've had this since. I'm serious. I think this is one of the same key lights I used back like 10 years ago. Um, but anyway, one of one. Yep. Because it was square, and I wasn't down with the square thing. I couldn't make it. I was trying to make it like have transparency that would bleed through to the shirt color, so we could do like yellow and blue and stuff, and then it would, you know what I mean? But it totally didn't work. So that's that. Is the audio good? Just because I tweaked some settings. Cool. All right. I mean, this is basically just straight up continuing from Tuesday when I did a makeup for the World Cup one, because I actually didn't even really talk about the Ocean Blue that much. I was just like, hey, the Ocean Blue is this crazy, college band from Hershey, Pennsylvania, and everybody thought they were British. Well, I didn't get into like what happened with them. Like I only talked about the first record, and the first record had, and I also pulled up the same store we were at the same spot. But I mean, the first record had these like classically mid 80s, post REM Anglican inspired hits like Between Something and Nothing and Drifting Falling. They were both really big. Like you should know these songs. Like if you want to understand what was going on in the 80s in pop music and alternative music in the mid and late 80s, you should just know these, whether or not you like them. Yeah, they used to play Hershey Park, legit. You know, anyway, so they had those hits, and then like shoegaze started to take off, and the whole like bands like the 415 bands and stuff, and Translator and all these other bands that were just kind of like mid-tempo, a little bit of teardrop guitar, post REM-y things. It kind of wasn't good enough. So on their second album, Cerulean, this is actually when I first heard them. I hadn't heard the first record because I wasn't like listening to college radio when I was 13. I was just about to start finding out about that, honestly. And this was the one that they had a song on 120 Minutes on MTV, which was called Ballerina Out of Control. It's a really cool song, and it follows on from the sound that they had started with. Bizarrely, it's like stuck late on the album. The title track is very good. On the whole, like this album is much more melodramatic, not melodramatic, dramatic, and sort of serious than the first one. The first one is very much, college rock. It's kind of whip smart and clever, and this one just has way more maturity to it, even though they weren't mature and they were still like kids. But they're both really good. I only ever had this on cassette, so I actually bought the CD off Discogs at one point during. This was probably even before COVID, when I really started collecting, physical more. And the interesting thing is, so they totally like shit the bed. Like they did this third album that doesn't really sound, or look much like those enough. And then it got really sort of dumb, and they did super cheesy, mid-tempo-y kind of retro pop, not like Pizzicato 5 bad, not like 60s, Exotica bad, but it just, they whenever you're around actually did pretty well. But this record was a pretty substantial break with the sound they had started out with. And so these mid-period records, they kind of abandoned what they were to a minor degree. It's not night and day. It's not like they came out and they did, started using drum machines or something really dramatic. It's just these are significantly lesser, kind of mannered albums that don't really have the originality and the freshness of the first two. The thing is they returned to it. So they broke up for like 10, almost 10 years. And they came back after seeing Interpol and all these, bands, I mean, Stella Star, Interpol, you name it, all that stuff that started happening in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were kind of like, well, maybe we shouldn't have broken up. Maybe we should have stuck it out, because this sound absolutely had its minute. And look, like, those bands were inspired by Joy Division and by, you know, all the most obvious Echo and the Bunnymen stuff, and the English stuff that was canon and cool and is the stuff you find out about when you're learning about pop music as a kid. So, you know, the Ocean Blue never got cited. None of the American college rock bands. Nobody was even citing, you know, the Feelies or anything in that whole, you know, Interpol whatever period. It was all English stuff, and that continued, you know, into the post-punk new wave. And it's what's up, JR? Thanks for stopping by, dude. And it's so the band never really, there's never been a good lane to talk about them. And there are some bands from this period and from the 80s that are mid-tempo, you know, English influence stuff that, look, they barely had a couple of good songs. You know, Wire Train, I always mention Translator, 415, bands like that. There's tons of that everywhere. There's a band from Lawrence, Kansas that we were goofing on in the Discord I'm in, because when we had Vitreous Humor play at Skidmore, I actually wasn't involved in this, but because it was after I had left, I had graduated, because they were the Regrets then. When Vitreous Humor came and played, though, when we were talking about it prior to that, when they were still Vitreous Humor, they had mentioned this band and from Lawrence that was the same kind of thing. And it's every sort of college town had those bands, but the Ocean Blue was superior, like significantly superior to most of that mid-tempo American, English-influenced American rock. There was another band I mentioned in the third of the 3 shoegaze videos, which I might re-upload. I found them. They're not high quality. I don't have the originals because it was 10 years ago and I couldn't even afford the storage space of like a 4 gig video. So they're like the crappy MP4s, and they don't look great. I'm gonna see what I can do. But anyway, there was another band called Caterwaul that I talked about. I believe I got there. I swear, wherever I said they were from in the shoegaze video was wrong, and I put a thing over it saying no, I think it was Phoenix that they're from, and I said something. Anyway, there was this band Caterwaul. It was the same kind of scenario, right? They had a really kind of strong, angular, blasting female singer, not doing, you know, Susie per se. A little more personality, a little more original than that. The band wasn't very consistent, but they had good, you know, a couple of good little hits, and they had a really interesting video. And so that top tier of, you know, those bands that just weren't cracking it, weren't compelling enough, were, yeah, alternative, but it was still mid-tempo rock. So how, you know, how unique and incredible or whatever is this? Yeah, Joe, they had a video that was photocopies, and it was basically, it was a still motion video of photocopies of film images of the band, which was very original. They were all crinkled up. They got a lot of attention for that. The band Caterwaul I was just talking about. But that's the tier. Like O Positive is, you know, despite the fact that they also weren't, they kind of totally blew out and became major label casualties. But O Positive in the mid 80s in Boston is similarly, they were more than just college kids playing 4/4, you know, A, E, D, B, and you know, someone in a monotone, hi, my girlfriend. And I mean, half those bands were all like that. But this band was significantly better and over a very long stretch of time. And O Positive had a good run for a good 5 years, from the Only Breathing Cloud Factory beginnings up until the major label debut, Toy Boat. Which actually got them on MTV, because the major label was like, you could sound a lot like REM, and REM is huge, because this is right when Losing My Religion's happening. So anyway, actually it was right before Losing My Religion when O Positive got pressed to do Imagine That and songs that sounded like that whole, you know, The Church, REM, the big alternative acts before Nirvana. So anyway, Ocean Blue, you know, heard about Interpol. The funny thing is, as I recall, Interpol's manager went to Villanova, right? I think. And so he totally knew the Ocean Blue, and I'm wondering like if there was cross-pollination there. And anyway, certainly the Ocean Blue were aware of the bands like Interpol and Stella Star and all the stuff that was blown up around that time. And so they came back in 2004, and they did this EP called Waterworks, and it's quite good. I'm a fan. You know, they were way past any kind of sell-by date, but I've always just kind of stuck in with this band. I think they, you know, there's just not that many interesting bands, particularly when you're talking about indie rock. It's such a bland, samey genre where bands don't tend to distinguish themselves much. And I always felt that they did appreciably. Yeah, they had a bad faltering period there in the mid 90s. Who didn't, you know, in post Nirvana land. The thing that really surprised me though was after that EP, which is very much going right back to their source sound that was obviously in the air, they really took another 10 years and they came out with a full length here called Ultramarine. And this is pretty solid. Like, you know, look, this is not going to blow anyone's socks off, but it's a good record. There's 4 or 5 really good, blurry, you know, typical, you know, sad boy, whatever. But like, no one heard this record. No one was like, Ocean Blue got back together. It's not like My Bloody Valentine reforming. It's not even like, you know, Swerve Driver touring. It's a band that just never, outside of that very specific late 80s college rock thing, they just never got rec from really anybody because their sound wasn't extreme enough and they were based on harmony, you know, guitar leads and licks. So, you know, it's a band I wanted to highlight. I wanted to highlight them because I think they deserve to be re-celebrated and they should be a band that you're checking out, you know. And of course today with the Kraus shirt, this is one of one. Everybody's been talking about this article that Stereo Gun put out about the new shoegaze canon, which 2 of the record label that I help run, MutualSkies, 2 of our artists are featured in it, Bedlocked and Kraus from Texas. And I've been, you know, friends with, associated, working with Will Kraus for a long time. And we all put out a CD, this CD called Eye Escapes, which is actually just demos. Unfortunately, like, people were so stoked and starved for Kraus material that some people were like, this doesn't sound that good. It's like, it says right on there, it's like an abandoned album of demos that there's just, I loved it. And it's kind of like a demo of the sounds that were on the really big record he had that the whole label and me had nothing to do with, which the song Bum has become enormous. It's like, it's been a TikTok meme. It's, you know, it's getting, the listeners on Spotify are going nuts. That's all to do with Kraus, not to do with anything with us or the label. But we were really proud to put this out. It was the first thing we put out when we started the label. And then, you know, View No Country is his label, which is mostly tape stuff. He had put out Sprawl, which did really well. It's an awesome tape. Like, if you go to View No Country on Bandcamp, Sprawl had this fantastic tape, and he put it out a couple different times. And then the guy or guys behind that started this new thing, Bedlocked, and I thought it was fantastic. You know, Will had shared it with me before it was out. And I was like, well, we're doing this thing and we're really focused on CD. Like, CD's the thing. I miss CD. I'm totally CD gang. I think it's the best format. I mean, from a technical perspective, I don't think it's even a debate. It's silly that people are trying to justify fetish vanity vinyl as being, you know, somehow superior and analog and all that warmth crap. It's nonsense. Yeah, Real Estate was not one of my favorite bands. I was never a fan, but yes, you can definitely say that that was a band that was very informed by the kind of, you know, college rock sounds of an Ocean Blue. That's a good call out. Which album was the abandoned one? So when I don't want to get into speaking on behalf of one of our artists, okay, but like when he was doing the album View No Country, which is the name of a Kraus album and also his label, there was a bunch of demos leading around that time that we were sharing and talking about, and I was really obsessed with them, and he wanted to go in a different way, and so they just kind of sat there, and I was like, let's just put it out, you know, no one knows who we are. This is a brand new label. It's not going to do anything, and everyone was cool with it, and it was great, and we got to do a really fun thing where we got these special CD cases from England. They're called Super Jewel boxes, and they were never adopted in the US because the CD was essentially dying or making so much with standard jewel cases, and nobody thought it was worth it to spend more to you know, differentiate the packaging or whatever with a CD. So yeah, it was really cool seeing this article. It's a really long article. You know, 10 years ago, I had done some videos as shallow rewards about shoegaze that were relatively popular. A lot of people watched them. But, you know, I took that channel down and went offline in like 2016. But someone's re-uploaded them. They're out there on YouTube if you want to find them. Just shallow rewards, shoegaze. They're still out there. I did those 10 years ago. It's so weird thinking that that was 10 years ago, but you know, in there I talked a lot about a lot of the bands and topics that are in this article, and I'm glad to see people that are, you know, are younger are doing their homework and really learning about the genre and what was going on. I mean, Gen Xers like me, I'm like the last year of Gen X. Like I'm like a 2 year from being millennial, but we were spoiled rotten. I've said this in a million places. Like Heaven or Las Vegas and Loveless came out within 8 months of each other. I mean, like, it's just ridiculous. People are still talking about all the music that came out when I was 15, 16 years old. And they're not talking about like anything except like the Strokes Interpol period. A lot of people's childhoods are not being like resurfaced except in like niche ways. But for some reason, a lot of the stuff that was big during my era is still being talked about in these heavy, you know, terms of reverence or whatever. And the thing that's weird is so many people my age are out of the criticism game. It's not us doing it. We're not like beating anyone over the heads with, you got to listen to the stuff that happened when I was a kid. And that was what happened with No Wave and so many critics when I was starting out as a critic in my 20s. All the older generation was like, oh, you don't know James Chance? And I was like, this sucks, I don't care. But anyway, it was cool to see this article because the person who wrote it, I retweeted it. I was on the account at that time and I retweeted it, and I thought it was a really good article. So, you know, anyway, check it out. It's on Stereo Gum. It's all over Twitter. Everyone's talking about it. It's just a great summary of what came before, and then positioning bands like Full Body 2 and a lot of other current bands that are infusing shoegaze, kind of the emotional character of shoegaze, into more modern kind of, you know, like internet savvy sludge and loop and you know, repetition, and they mention, you know, pretty loudly in the article about breaks and things like that. It's funny because a couple of the bands that are mentioned in it, our label reached out to them. We wanted to put out Blue Smiley, and we also wanted to put out Full Body too, but they, you know, they weren't interested, or they haven't gotten back to us. I mean, just after an initial exchange, and you know, Godspeed. At this point, we're too small. Honestly, I'm sure they have much more hip, like, you know, established, you know, young thriving labels that are going to end up working with them. But, you know, just respect to them. They're doing great shit, and I loved it. And when I shared it with, you know, the partners in the label, they were like, this would be sick. But it's, look, the people running this, they're not all my age, but everyone's got their scenes, right? And record labels have been part of scene for a long time. We intentionally are running this label in a way where it's not about a scene. It's not about every band being friends and sounding the same. We actually want the opposite. We want to be putting out stuff that we love, but that is from completely different genres and scenes. The release that we just finalized and ordered today is a grindcore band from from Tennessee. And the last thing we put out is a 2 LP deluxe vinyl of Finally Boys. You know, they were friends with Friend Zone out in the SoundCloud rap period in the East Bay. I mean, we really want to make sure that it's just about what hits for us. Because the scene thing is just one, well, most of us are too old. I certainly am. But it's just something I've never been a fan of, because I was, you know, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Factory Records and stuff. And, you know, Factory Records is going from Quando Quango to Durruti Column to, you know what I mean? It's like, despite the fact that only, you know, a small number of their bands took off and they're forever associated with that, they were trying to do lots of, you know, silly, extreme, different, you know, stuff. And it all failed. And so is almost everything we put out so far. Because I honestly, people aren't like stoked about CD yet. A CD is this, you know, it's used CDs. It's you know, it's a pastime. It's physical media that you can afford. It's not there. Like, no one's cherishing CDs the way that they've been cherishing and worshiping vinyl. So anyway, we're gonna go back to the same store that we hit the last time and pick up where we left off. Give it a couple of years. I don't think I have a couple of years, man. I mean, look, I made a kind of a promise to stick with this for a bit, but We'll see. Anyway, where did we leave off? We left off at Billy Bragg and Dead Can Dance. So, oh yeah, we did Erasure's Pop. There's Billy Bragg. Okay, this is literally where we were last time. So this store was crazy full of, 90s peak era, CD. Of course, now that I'm scrolling down, it's going to be like nothing. It's going to be jazz and classical. It's fucking dying its ass. Oh, this is a blasphemy. Ugh. Bruce Springsteen having a greatest hit CD, an inevitability, but just awful. That's just horrible. Should not be. Shouldn't even look at it. Shouldn't even acknowledge it. What? Wow. Man Will Surrender. Oh my God. Um, there's like a period in time I could go on and on about. I almost joined like 3 different bands on Revelation. I don't want to just like tell stories from my past, but in Boston there were tons of hardcore bands getting looked at because of, the area and the bands that were blowing up, Drowning Man, Hydra Head, ISIS, all that stuff. And I almost made a pretty huge mistake and ended up joining like such a bad post-hardcore band that was like in between Botch and Sunny Day Real Estate. Oh, it was the worst. I got excited thinking it was the song Man Will Surrender by Palehead. Yeah. There's one I would say that is vinyl, period, correct, on vinyl. That 12-inch, because the cover art is really iconic, the purple with the Palehead and white. If you don't know, Palehead is one of the strangest collaborations like ever. It's Ian MacKaye from Fugazi and Al Jorgensen of Ministry doing essentially a Ministry record, much in the tradition of like the Thousand Homo DJs project, with Ian MacKaye singing on it. And it is so, so good. And it's only 4 songs. And like Ian's told the anecdotes where he's like, look, I know what you, like Al would keep leaving the session to go to the bathroom. And eventually, like after the 6th time, Ian MacKaye was like, look, I know what you're doing and I don't care. I'm not here to like judge you. I know I'm straight edge, but like, as long as you're not threatening me or fucking up the session, it's none of my business. Because like literally Al was like, he couldn't go 15 minutes without doing rails at that point. Late 80s, early 90s Al is off the chain. You got to get his book, by the way. Al Jorgensen's book, holy shit, it is amazing. And it is, if anything, it's 50% of the insanity. Like he held back tons of stuff that is superbly illegal. That and when you think about what's in this book, if you read it, it's just like, I mean, look, that kind of thing is not in fashion anymore. I get it, but I grew up with that. I'm a child of like rock and roll drug excess. Like that's what I worshipped. It's stupid, but I did. And the Jane's Addictions and the Ministries were like, the Black Sabbaths of. This is an original promo poster for Paranoid, by the way. It's real. It's not like a photocopy. It's not. It's the original coded Paranoid promo poster. I found it at a used record stall at a church fair of all places. Cherished object. Anyway, yeah. So Palehead. You got to get that. In vinyl, it's worth it, I think, as an object. Did I watch the Wax Trax doc? Yes, I did. I have it on Blu-ray. The story of getting out of a mugging because he was a bop man. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good. Anyway, so Dashboard Confessional. Oh, speaking of brutal periods in music, Sarah McLachlan. Love Sarah McLachlan. Absolutely love her. Unironically, all of it, man. This Possession, so good, so good. This album's a little bit much. Like it starts so good. Building Mystery, such a great song. Sweet Surrender, love it. I don't go for the Angel like big ballad stuff, but the one for me is Fumbling Toward Ecstasy. Man, this record's so good. And like 43 cents. These 2 records, Possession and the title track. So this title track, Fumbling Toward Ecstasy, is so beautiful. It's gonna get used in some streaming show as the finale or whatever if it hasn't already. It was used over the credits of an indie movie that came out in the late 90s about necrophilia. Uh, it was an indie movie like back in those wild IFC Sundance days. I can't remember what it's called. There was this indie movie about you know, cursed romance or whatever. Um, and it involves a girl who has a fetish for dead people. And anyway, the closing credits, they somehow synced or were able to license Fumbling Toward Ecstasy, which is this really cool drum machine kind of hollow thing. Molly Parker? I don't know. I learned Angel was about the Smashing Pumpkins keyboardist who OD'd. Yeah, yeah. I thought you were saying that was the actress that was in it. Anyway, I'm a fan of hers. I love the fact that she's been stuck on network and is so paired with them. The early sort of worldy goth stuff. The movie is Kissed, that's right, and the star is Molly Parker. Okay, Kissed. Yeah, that was the movie. I remember it well. I have all those weird void indie movie like Joe So Mean to Josephine and whatever, these super weird mumblecore movies that just are they're beneath indie. Like there's just barely a script, it's just scene chewing. But I've got them all on VHS from back then because I was, sitting alone in my apartment taping everything for no reason. Every Breath You Take, the singles, you got to have this for that little. Similar in the last one I talked about Synchronicity. This is an early CD. This is one where people were like, finally I can get the Police on CD, because you couldn't get all of their albums on CD. You could get Synchronicity, but like initially you couldn't get the old ones right away on CD. They weren't repressed immediately. So Every Breath You Take canon is like absolutely a CD you should get for $2.99. Even if you have it, and like the Police are never going to go off streaming. There's no like, theory reason you need to have the Police on physical media. Like you're going to lose the ability to listen to the Police. No, but for for $1, for $2, this is an object that like if you want to build a collection, it's a thing. Like it's part of the history of pop music on CD. I also have it on vinyl because it's such an iconic cover for anybody my age. I mean, I was like 11 when this came out and the Police were like the shit. Like I love the Police. They were one of the cool bands I had heard of, oh God, here's a rough one. Talking about network, unbelievably, and Revelation. Sensefield. So Sensefield is one of the graduates of one of the all-time infamous landfill compilations, Revelation's In-Flight program from '98. This thing is one of the most important in signature hardcore punk, whatever. Like it's such an amazing survey of that label and that label's kind of omnipotence in hardcore for most of the '90s. Anyway, Sensefield is on there. This song Love Is Building or something, and it's one of the best songs they ever did. They sold the fuck out. This band went Sunshine, Promise Ring, like it was unfucking believable how cheesy this band decided to get. And what happened was, bizarrely, they got big in Japan because of it. This album has like a deluxe edition in Japan or something that goes for ridiculous money. Their later, flowery, slice of cake pop did really well for them, just not in the US, where of course they were considered sellouts and bullshit and whatever. But the funniest thing about this is they cover A Letter to Elise by The Cure. And if you know, and that I've done like 70 podcasts and stuff about The Cure, when they did the Cure Icon performance, which is this infamous thing Marilyn Manson emceed, Blink-182 performed this, and it was so bad that there's shots of like Robert and the band like, oh God, like it's so dumb. This thing that's so stupid about it is it was like within 9 months of this coming out. And it's the same, it could be Blink-182 when you listen to it. Honest to God. It's the exact same treatment. And fuck off, Jog. It's the exact same treatment. And it's actually not bad. I don't own this. I haven't bothered to get it, but I probably will just to have this. It's so weird what happened to this band. Anyway, that's very niche. The Nunsuch collection. That's weird. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, this label had a minute where I think this is somehow related to Darren Aronofsky. Like, It compiles a lot of soundtracky stuff. People who worked with him, Kronos Quartet, obviously. This this whole label, None Such, went for that like hardcore New York art thing, and I don't recall that it really took off. Anyway, find something more that I can more easily talk about. Cracker, ugh, awful. I mean, whatever. Dave Lowry got a bag. It's rubbish. It's awful. He did it so he can make money. Camper Van Beethoven as an entity legally was a bunch of people. Even if they got big as they got off Key Lime Pie, he couldn't sign a new deal. And Virgin was like, well, you're the one who can really do whatever. And so he formed a new band. And he got a huge fucking deal. Tons of money. And then years later, he goes complaining about the music industry and streaming and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you were one of the people that profited the most from the music industry. Almost nobody's been luckier than you, because nothing you've done has actually moved shit. It really soured me on him. I was just like, you are just an absolute hypocrite, man. But you know, that whole thing of call out, hypocrite, whatever, is, who gives a shit? He can do whatever he wants. Cracker sucked. Tangerine Drip Phaedra. Oh, here we go. Oh, now you never know with Discogs listings which release the actual version you're buying has been attached to in the marketplace. If this is the original 85 Virgin CD of it, that is the original CD issue of one of their cooler records. Now, you know, I've already talked about them, you know, and what's considered their favorites. I actually think Phaedra's super, super strong. It's not like no one does, tons of people do, but it's not like Stratosphere and Zeit and the ones where it's just like, you know, in my experience, Phaedra, yeah, oh, that's right. And it was the one used in the Black Mirror episode. I mean, this band's catalog, you know, up to, I don't know when it taps out, because it changes. They were so smart about changing. And I don't want to rehash everything I've said in other streams, but this is a monster one to get. And hopefully it is the original 85. I'm a big fan of OG masters for CD because they've preserved headroom. It's pre-loudness war. I don't get totally tinfoil about this stuff, but it is a legitimate concern when you talk about reissues of really, you know, legacy important bands. They get screwed with. Whoever gets their hands on them, it's a total crapshoot whether or not the reissue is going to be like blasted out and nuts. Like Neu is a perfect example. The band, the krautrock German band Neu. And there was someone who just wrote another huge article about the Hallo Gallo kids, and like they're named after the first song on that Neu record. Neu had reissues that were absolutely just astonishingly bad. Like CDs that were recorded from the vinyl shit. Yeah, it was so bad. And that was right when I was trying to get into them, because Cluster and Harmonium and Neu and Gyroscope Records was having this enormous revival in the mid-90s when I was working in college radio. And that was when I learned about all those bands. But even then, you could not get Neu records. They were like completely in legal limbo. And Can too, until the Can delay thing and Thurston Moore and everybody started, you know, giving them rec. Can was impossible to even learn about. And then this huge reissue campaign happened and you got all of it. And now it's just like the whole flavor of that, it's never going to come back. It's never going to be hard to immediately find out about anything except like stuff that you don't need to know about. And so the artificial scarcity is part of the bargain. You know what I mean? There's the you know, the Vince McMahon face joke. It's like, here's a hardcore band. It's from 1984. Only available on 7-inch. Only printed 100 copies. Sounds like shit. Like, great. But that thing, the record geek thing, you got to go so far down the fucking rabbit hole of bullshit to come away with something that's not totally out there that everyone knows about. It's not worth it. Everything pretty good has been surfaced. Like, stop. Anyway, what else we got? Bunch of comps. Well, this is bizarre. I'm just thrown by the name of this. The best of melodic rock and new age fantasy music. Instrumental. Wow, that's something. I don't know. I'd really be taking us down a cul-de-sac. Oh God, the Crash Test Dummies. Yikes. Okay, so Art of Noise, one of my favorite bands, one of the first cool bands I ever heard, because they also functioned as novelty music when I was a kid. So, you know, Close to the Edit, Beatbox, all these songs, Moments in Love, I heard them when I was like 8. They were big because they were like goofy. The Peter Gunn theme, Paranoia, Max Headroom. Like, Art of Noise was a novelty Dr. Demento joke band on the surface, and that was totally intentional. Paul Morley and everybody that was involved and actually in this band, their whole gambit was like, they did Frankie Goes to Hollywood, they did Relax. And so their gambit was, you know, Ann Dudley's like a classical composer, and we're all the people who ran the Fairlight at what's his name studio, just Trevor Horn, the Yes 90125. Anyway, that guy, I'm totally blanking. I don't like prep for these. It's just a brain. Anyway, whoever mentions it, you know, all the people who formed ZTT Records, they were the only people like in the world who knew how to operate and had access to the Fairlight CMI, which was the first sampling keyboard ever. JJ Jeselnik was the programmer, right? I've talked about them. There's an old video again that isn't up there anymore because I deleted that channel, but I did a video explicitly about this and how crazy it was that this band essentially formed because they were producing a Yes record and having fun with it. And one of the jokes they were doing while producing the Yes record ends up becoming beatbox. And if you listen to that breakdown in Owner of a Lonely Heart, that's this. It's the people who become Art of Noise. And this record, unfortunately, is a bummer. It's not good. The intention was smart. Let's isolate, because this Opus for 4 is this beautiful piano piece. I actually love the little 42-second refrain the most. The thing is their most beautiful stuff is not strictly ambient. And so this is a really stiff, strange compilation, and I don't know why, and China is also related to them too. I don't know why they did it. They had, it's just whatever, it is what it is. I don't recommend it, is my point. If you see any other Art of Noise in these, you know, collections, as you're going through stores or whatever, it's probably not going to be cheap. Certainly not the original Into Battle with the Art of Noise record, which I have. But, you know, you should be able to find Who's Afraid, some reissue of it for relatively cheap, and that's the one. The rest of these records have too much of the novelty stuff, but they had their big hits. And so for me, the way to deal with it is to get the compilation of that, which is called Daft. They put this out straight away to get the American market into them. And, you know, it's a pretty great summary of where they started. How common is it? I really don't know. To me, the best thing you can get, and I have 2 copies of this in case anything ever happens to it, is the best of the Art of Noise. This is the 12-inch mixes of everything. It's so great. They're listing the single versions. I don't know why, because I mean, I have this. I've had it since it came out, and it's not the single versions. It's the 8-minute 12-inch versions of all of it, and it's so phenomenal. So I mean, if you find this, definitely you want to get the best of Art of Noise to start your journey with this band. I'm strictly an early Art of Noise person. Plus Kiss. Like Kiss is their cover of Prince's Kiss with Tom Jones is the drum sound in that. I could listen to it and have listened to it for 24 hours straight. It's unfucking believable how much it spanks. Rappers have sampled Moments in Love. Absolutely. I mean, I'm positive they have. I mean, it's been sampled by tons of people. It's a huge legacy, foundational, original loop. Like, it was absolutely respected and revered by the hip hop community. What is this? Oh boy. Yep, that goes back. I remember this. That's not worth getting. Anyway. All right, so let's get on to the next page and see what else this store might have. A couple of good ones though, still. Chameleonaire. Moments in Love has been sampled like 5,000 times. No, I know. But I think he was talking about like a strict, you know, loop rap over it. All That You Can't Leave Behind, late period YouTube. Jones the Hit List. So there's another one that's red. This is the crappy one that's from 90. There's another greatest hits of hers that's way longer. I definitely recommend starting out with that, because her albums aren't solid. I love Bad Reputation, but you know, after the signature album, with I Love Rock and Roll on it, the LPs aren't really there, but she has a lot of great hits. So anyway, I consider Joan Jett essentially a greatest hits artist with, you know, get the debut, the Black Hearts records, first 2 records as well, would be my recommendation. She's got a good catalog though. I mean, the coolest thing about Joan Jett is she covered Lungfish's Friend to Friend in the End Time. Like the whole thing with the Gits and the murder of Mia Zapata was really honorable. And her also, you know, being totally involved in Riot Girl and with Bikini Kill and everything, and Heavens to Betsy and all those acts, and Bratmobile was super cool of her. Like Kim Gordon, she really lent her reputation as, like, you know, the elder stateswoman to those bands and amplified their voice, and just like huge respect for that. But bizarrely, she heard Lungfish from all of that stuff and being aware of Discord. I mean, look, she produced the Germs. Like, she's 360 rad as hell forever, always will be. But she started covering Friend to Friend in the End Time. She did a really good version of it. It never got officially released, I don't think, but it's out there on YouTube. And that's like an OG Lungfish record, Discord record. That album, Rainbows from Atoms, the one with the picture of like a field on the cover. God, we burned that down in college. The Hives, oh, that's some time. Yeah, the early 2000s, what a thing. Hate to say I told you so. I mean, this is just landfill jackass music. This is like Viva La Bam shit. I mean, I don't miss this at all. I have it. I paid 50 cents for it on an order because I was just like, why not? You know, because it was a thing. Like I've told you, I'll get things because they're things. But I mean, the funniest thing, Burning Heart was such a good hardcore label. I've said before, not in these streams, my favorite hardcore release ever was on Burning Heart Records by a band called Breach. It was an EP called Outlines, and it's just, it's perfect. I can't even describe to you how perfect it is. The drumming, the production is like right in that perfect, heavy, chubby, like just chugging hardcore. And if you can find this thing is so good front to back. Predict a Life, oh my God, the song bombs from orbit. I mean, and like almost all of this is great. And it's so weird because this band became really weird and pretentious and arty after this and fucked it up. But goddamn, they were on one for that record, Breach's Outlines. They also did Donuts. I mean, I'm not just gonna run through the whole, yeah, even by the next album, Friction, in '95, Breach was like off the trail. But I mean, Burning Heart, apart from Millencolin, you know, Tony Hawkcore, they had massively legit, like Nordic hardcore shit. And they had, you know, they had Hives and, you know, I'm trying to find the other really infamous band of theirs. But they had the early Hive stuff, Main Offender. They rushed out a compilation of that shit right after Hate to Say I Told You So blew up, that has like songs from Barely Legal, songs from that. And then, of course, the reason that, you know, Burning Heart printed money forever, well, one of the main reasons is Refused. New Noise has just never died. And this album was... It was the extent to which this album crossed over, and you would like go to people's apartments at a party and they'd have this, but they were like totally normie otherwise. Like they'd have Weezer and this and like Bjork. Like this shit crossed over in a way that almost no other hardcore did. It was fucking nuts. How many people heard New Noise and were just like, and had no curiosity, didn't explore hardcore. It didn't turn them on to other stuff. They were probably like people who were already listening to Deftones or whatever. And yeah, or Korn, exactly. I mean, yes, this band comes from a totally real like hardcore label environment, but look, the music they ended up making, like getting slicker and sounding more polished, was a thing in the late 90s for hardcore bands. You hear it in Botch, you hear it in all the Hydra Head bands. You know, Drowning Man totally tried to sound super Def Leppard big, because it was like, we're sick of it sounding like Bold and Burn and fucking Judge with, you know, chunking can suck it. Like all of the stuff done in those New York studios with fucking shitty MIDI verb reverb and fucking fake room reflections. Like that's so of its time and I love it. But it was like hardcore never got any respect or was no money was spent on it. And I when I reviewed Drowning Man for Pitchfork for the EP, How They Light Cigarettes in Prison, my main comment was, holy shit, this album cover looks like a Cocteau Twins record. And it sounds phenomenal. And like, this is what people should be doing in hardcore, taking it seriously, making it more artistic. And like ISIS sort of nailed it with my favorite song is Celestial. You know, ISIS really, from the Signal, early Signal period and Glisten in the Tower and all that stuff, they completely took hardcore. I mean, yes, they're also heavily post-rock and kind of like Mogwai sludge, but it was a big thing. And the Hives, while not a hardcore band at all, it's, you know, that's like rock and rolly, rockabilly, glam shit like Turbo, you know who. The whole idea of this stuff becoming polished and not apologizing for sounding good and like kicking that whole fucking, you know, we're indie, we can't have nice things shit out the fucking door was great. I was all for it. Found Erasure Pop for $1 at the thrift store today. Nice job. Way to go, Sam. I'm describing Envy. Yeah, I mean, Envy, I love Envy. The Envy Thursday split is one of my cherished possessions, man. Envy were fantastic. And yes, they were of exactly that mindset. Like, let's take this to that place. Although, look, some of the Envy stuff is probably a little bit influenced by Dream Theater. Let's be honest. What else do we got here? What do we got? We have about 15. There it is! God damn, I was talking about this in the last goddamn thing. Okay, this is the one you do not want. You do not want the 1990 version of World in Motion because all of these remixes suck. You want to get the 2002 reissue to get that B-side, such a good thing. Oh God, Eels. Oh, I can't, I'm just not, I'm gonna not go there. And I'm also not gonna go on Space. The John Lennon collection. I mean, you know, the Beatles. I'm not going to talk about the Beatles. Daniel Lanois solo records. Feist the Reminder. Hyperborea. Interesting. These aren't like gut cheap. Oh, here you go. Echo's Greatest. You have to get this for Bring On the Dancing. Well, actually, I don't think you do anymore. No, I think the reissue only has the 12-inch mix of this. I think the single edit of this, this might be the only place still you can get it. Not sure, but you talk about records that you know, shaped kids in the late 80s like me. This is monster. This cover is so goddamn iconic. Like, my older sister had it. That's how I heard it. And these are the things that, this is the way in the physical media analog age that stuff got around and your eyes got opened. And this is, I mean, this is just an iconic piece of pop history, like I'm saying. I don't care if you have all their albums and you know, whatever, you don't like compilations. This is how the majority of America heard this band. Was either the, you know, the soundtracks to John Hughes movies or this compilation. Because Sire went way behind this. They were like, look, we don't sell albums over here in America so much, and we need to get singles comps out. He did it, you know, Seymour Stein did all this. He went over to England in '82, and he's like, I want everything you got. He had Depeche Mode, The Cure, Echo and the Bunnymen. He had it all lined up, and Warner was like, you got to pick one or the other. You can't keep all these bands. So what's the band he dropped? The Cure. And that's why The Cure signed to Elektra from 1985 on and only did Japanese Whispers in the Top with Sire. Because Seymour Stein, and it's like his biggest regret. If you read his book, Seymour Stein's book about his career, which is amazing. Seymour Stein chose, I believe he chose Depeche Mode over The Cure, if I'm remembering right, which wasn't a bad call, but he should have just kept them both. Anyway, it was like, they were like, look, we're spending so much money on Madonna, you can't go over and sign like all the bands in England. You can only have 2 or something. It's a really funny story. Absolutely get his book. I can't remember what it's called. It's got an orange cover. It's such a great read, man. He's so honest and like forthcoming without being trashy and dirty laundry. It's just great. Good book. Super fast read. But I mean, this thing is just gold top to, I mean, front to back. You're not going to take this off the record. I mean, take it off the play. This thing goes all day. So, you know, again, $3.99, yeah, that's fine. I've said repeatedly, this is where I go for the Beatles. I think this is the best collections of the Beatles work from the right masters at the right period that's preserving vinyl headroom in terms of the, you know, the LRA and the mastering. Well, LRA wasn't even a thing back then. I mean, nobody except the plants knew what it was. But past masters 1 and 2, this is my shit. And it's not just like, look, it's not just because this is what it was around and promoted when I was a kid in like '88 or whatever, because the blue and red CDs were there too. I mean, it's just that they were such a great collection of the two periods of the Beatles. I don't know, for me, I always love these, and you know, you can, my point is, with all the reissuing that's been done and the anthologies and all this other stuff, you can get tons and tons of Beatles stuff for really cheap. And you should. You know, don't buy these stupid fake 7-inch lunchbox box sets that they're putting out. Like, this is what you want to get. These are really great presentations of some of their best stuff. And, you know, just absolutely screamingly recommend picking that up. And 2, if you can find it. Of course, I'm not sorted on anything in any way. Is this which reissue is this? Oh yeah, that's a must, man. I love these Ryko reissues. So there's the box set 2.5 years that launched this whole reissue campaign. You can pick that up for not too much money if you look. But anytime you see an EC Ryko reissue from '93, from the early '90s, these reissues were phenomenal. They sound so goddamn good. They are so clean and so true to the original tapes. I mean, and this is one of, I mean, all of his first 4 albums are arguably his best albums. They're just, the guy was just unfucking believably prolific as a songwriter, out of the gate. And his run up through, you know, honestly, up through Punch the Clock, his run is insane. I mean, yeah, you know, there's faltering stuff. Almost Blue and Trust are kind of weak, but yeah, anyway, this one, absolutely take this down, because you get the appended What's So Funny, and you get these incredible extended plays that were on the 12 inches. This Live at the Hollywood Bowl recording of these 3 songs at the end is so fucking good. And his version of My Funny Valentine is like eternally great. You know, Green Shirt, the Big Boys, the bass drop in that, man. Fucking nobody had done some shit like that. Big Boys is such an underrated Costello song, man. It's so fucking good. This whole record is, though, I mean, it's silly talking about it. And yes, these albums, this year's model and this, considering when they came out, the production is absolutely nuts. I mean, no one was doing drums like that. I mean, yes, on the other side, you have XTC with drums and wires and the whole, you know, gate and whatever. But yeah, Beyond Belief is Live at Hollywood High. I said the Hollywood Bowl because I was talking about the Beatles. Live at Hollywood High is that legendary Elvis Costello show. That was reissued, I think, in its own deluxe presentation, because it was such a legendary bootleg of such a great performance and such a well-recorded performance. You got to test your speakers and your mix with Beyond Belief. Don't recommend that. I mean, that's one of the dirtiest, most technically fucked up songs of all time, Beyond Belief. But it is a masterpiece. That's from the album Imperial Bedroom, which follows on that, and is widely regarded as, you know, the artistic apex of both his career and potentially Martin's, and you know, lots of people involved. Oh man, you just made me remember Man Out of Time. God, what a fucking song. His lyrics are they're disgustingly brilliant. They're not too smart. They're just the right amount of smart. They're just the right amount of literate. I mean, the guy is just a fucking master. Anyway, Best of Madness? Hell yeah. Hell yes. This is, I mean, they're more than a singles band, but they're not the specials. Like, you know, they're way more than a singles band. But you can deal with this for a bit. I mean, you're getting One Step Beyond, you're getting Our House, duh. There's other fun stuff in here. Funnily enough, I like the Gray Day in this, and of course you got Michael Caine. But yeah, if you don't know if you don't know Madness beyond Our House or beyond One Step Beyond, yeah, I mean, get started. This is a $2.99 CD to let you learn a little bit more about this band that is truly important. I mean, if you're in England, duh. But like Americans, this band, apart from Our House, like God, they used to play Our House a fucking lot. I remember sitting in the parking lot outside church on Sundays, and like that song was coming on every hour. It was really big. Complete Madness was one of the first CDs I ever owned. Good call. It is a lot of hits too. Yeah. But I'd say for the most part, yeah. I mean, that's not a band that, I'd say you have to go hugely deep on. Greatest thing Morrissey ever did, $4.99. You can get it for cheaper, but this is the best album he ever recorded. It contains, it's perfect. It's a perfect album. This album is, to me, whatever, The Cure's Disintegration, Vauxhall and I. This is his absolute masterpiece. From the opening track, it just never lets up, and the shades of melancholy, duh. But he's totally in the fucking perfect headspace. He's old enough that he's not your Arsenal with my boys and my droogs and my low slung guitars and my greaser quaff. Like this is his like majestic velvet perfect album, and he's not becoming a self-parodic caricature. It's just like completely owning your own shit. Why don't you find out for yourself? Hold on to your friends. I mean, those two songs, holy shit. Lazy Sunbather is great. Used to Be a Sweet Boy. Oh, I put that underneath. I did a podcast about, the issues with Morrissey. This is before the real issues that have happened in the last 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, the stuff that was going on even back then with the nationalism and Bengali and platforms and, all the things he did. I accept people for their flaws. I don't give a shit. It's not like I'm endorsing his, hang-ups by loving Morrissey's music or his persona. I did a recent podcast with my pal Elliot. You can find, if you look for Shallow Rewards on Spotify, there's a podcast called The Smiths is Dead that we did last year or the year before. When that movie came out about this fictitiously stupid movie about the idea of American Smiths obsessives in 1986 or something. It was the dumbest movie. What a disaster. But anyway, we talk really at length about being American Smiths fans as teenagers and what that was like and our memory of it, right or wrong. And, there were people who reacted to some of those contentions and that and were like, what is this kid talking about? Like there was a big thread on Morrissey Solo about this podcast, not big, but whatever, it was a couple pages. And somebody was like, you said that people didn't cover their walls in Smiths posters. I did. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I covered my wall in newspaper clippings. I couldn't afford 50 Smiths posters, but okay. It's just like, this band was so uniquely English, and not just English Mancunian, and not just Mancunian, kitchen sink, this bedroom archetype, very cut from similar cloth to Ian Curtis in so many ways. And, it really, to me, it all comes home on this record. This is it. This record is Morrissey to me. Much as I love his pop star booming ascension from Viva Hate through to the flawless Bon Drag compilation, that music is probably better than this. Bon Drag is not strictly a compilation. It's non-album singles altogether. And it's his best work as pop craft. But this emotionally, also just the sonics of it, is just unbelievably beautiful. I can't recommend it enough. You can find it for cheaper than $4.99, but wherever you get it, like if you've got a bag going on a store and it's $4.99, then and your shipping's already covered, it's well worth that. Phenomenal record. All right, we're coming up on time. I'm gonna have to try and keep this to a hard stop of an hour tonight. The Kills, no wow. I'll end on the Kills. So at one point, I kind of was rooting for the Kills. They were unashamedly open about the fact that like this is a model and a guy that's like putting on it's a tribute act to rock and roll notions, right? To the Jesus and Mary chain and to like old school rock and roll. And it's like we're open about the fact that this is a pose and that this is a reincarnation of rock and roll modes. I I went back and listened to this record recently. At the Back of the Shell was the really big one on it that I liked. It's got this cool kind of John Spencer. I mean, they were also open in their adoration and worship and imitation of Royal Trucks, duh, and you know, John Spencer and all the stuff that the Americans were doing at the time. You know, look, I went back and listened to it. It hasn't aged well. I still have this one. I have two of their records. I have this one and Keep on Your Mean Side, the debut. What's the other? And like, look, of course they got involved in Third Man, like all of the, you know what I mean? It's like that kind of a thing, like tribute act stuff, the Dead Weather, Raconteurs, you know, of course they were going to go that way because that's what they were. The same as all those other bands are, you know, they're tribute acts to the kind of story of rock and roll. You may not need that. I don't think that this is a band or a concept or a project that is one I would say like you need to have. But like if you're as deep or becoming as deep into like a lifetime of rock and roll imagery and music obsession as I am, I think it's interesting. It was an interesting idea. It was fully formed, maybe not fully, but it's a plus posit. And for $2.99, I would get it. You know, the Primal Scream kind of stuff, like it's very learned, informed, tributary, playing with notions in a way, like they were older too. Like it's not like they're Brian Jonestown Massacre and like Anton's like, you know, I'm the next coming of whatever with my fuzzy hat in the desert, like, and I'm doing meth and speed and I got real amphetamines and like I'm talking about how I have glass amphetamine capsules from the Nazis. Like his trip is the trip of like trying to make it real. They never pretended it was real. It was always, you know, an element of fashion, both in the music and in the actual fashions. And I mean, look, it sits with me fine. I don't think they were a band that like was ever gonna achieve, you know, enormous individual reputation. They just became part of the fabric of knowing, performing with it musicians. And you know, again, that's why you end up on Third Man. They're important if only to cite how many bands were not discussed in Meet Me in the Bathroom. That's not a bad point, but they're not really anything much to do with that scene. I mean, you know, look, Nick Yaz can definitely be like, what are you doing with my shit? You know, I mean, look, they were late to this whole thing, really. They were instamatic trying to hop on something they saw happening, honestly. But, you know, fine. There's worse shit you could have done with your time. And there's worse music you could have made. So for me, I'd say those first two Kills albums for $2.99 if you see them. Yeah, check them out. I mean, you know, this one, they're still with Domino. There's some funny shit on this. There's some good stuff. This first one is just like, it's got more of that Royal Trucks, you know, obsession or whatever. Guarantee they'll, yeah, exactly. No, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you know, look, Allison was, you know, whatever. It's it's a band that did something interesting and could have been so much shittier and so much less genuine than they were. They were relatively honest about things. They weren't pretending they were kids. They weren't pretending they didn't have connections and they didn't look great and know the right people. And I think there's an element of respectability to that. I've talked a million times about, to me, it's not about like, oh, you're a rich kid. It's like, I don't care if you're doing good shit and you're not making DIY and underground a point of trying to market yourself, because then you're just not being yourself. You're being dishonest and you're trying to appeal to an image that you want to inhabit that you can't, because you've never had to struggle in your life, or your parents are still paying your rent, or they're paying half your rent. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, people who are afraid of people finding out about their privilege are just so embarrassing. Like, you got to get over that shit. Like, it's really unhealthy. But, you know, at the same time, you don't shove it in anyone's face that you're rich. It's, you know, you just have to be comfortable and at home with who you are. And that to me is where I think the kills were fine. And they did some good shit. I mean, they were just there for a minute. When they came back with the third man period, I've not paid attention to any of that. It's really just about those first two records. But yeah, $2.99, $3.99 if you see them when you're grabbing a bag, I'd say take it. Anyway, they could have been the Ting Tings. There you go. Anyway, thanks for coming out again for the stream. We're gonna keep doing it until it becomes pointless or whatever. But we'll see you Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. Good night.